Hello, everyone. um, the first lesson I remember learning from water happened when my partner Dan, where are you, Dan? Hi. When we moved to Costa Rica together. It was a long journey from Minnesota to the southern Caribbean coast of Costa Rica, which we took aboard a 40-foot school bus that we had transformed into our RV and converted to run on used vegetable oil. By the time we arrived at our destination, I was 4.5 months pregnant. So one day, shortly after our arrival, we decided we're going to take a break from setting up our new business, which was a restaurant called Bread and Chocolate. And we headed for the beach. It was a gorgeous place, gorgeous scene. Sandy beaches met turquoise sea with verdant green islands jutting out from the water. Surfers were taking advantage of the waves in the distance. I stepped into the water and felt her power. In a moment of distraction, I was unexpectedly knocked over by a wave, and I immediately felt dizzy and started to pass out. Dan was right there and helped guide me safely to the shore, where I sat on the sand and came to and rested. And after a while, I felt better. But when I stood up, a wave of blood washed out of me. And I immediately fell back to the ground and started to cry. I thought we were losing our baby. We went through 3 Costa Rican medical facilities. The first was the nearby village clinic, which quickly deemed the situation out of their depth. I was sent by ambulance to the nearest hospital in the impoverished city of Limon, where they told me I was having a miscarriage, and also that it was a boy. Yeah. Well, they put me in the labor and delivery room, so not only was I laying there in bed, scared, but I was watching what felt like countless women leave the room to deliver their healthy babies. After 3 days and no miscarriage, they discharged me. From there, we headed to the capital city of San Jose and went to a state-of-the-art private hospital, the kind of place that doesn't even look at your face or your problems until you hand them your credit card. But there I received quality care and an accurate diagnosis. I was diagnosed with partial placenta previa, which simply meant that my placenta was low in my uterus, and where it was over the opening, it tore and bled when I was hit by the wave. It was most likely to resolve itself. The prescription was to take it easy, get off my feet, rest more. So though it was a terrifying experience, the overall message from the hospital was, everything is going to be okay. I was quite pregnant and working really hard to set up and open our restaurant. And with a crashing wave, the water showed me a vulnerability in my pregnancy and in myself, and demanded that I slow down and stop working so hard in the tropical heat of Costa Rica. Sometimes you have to get knocked out in order to slow down. Do you ever experience times in your life like that? Where you're working so hard, pushing the boulder uphill day and night, burning the candle at both ends, and suddenly you're knocked out by a terrible fever or a crazy cold, or your back starts spasming and you have no choice but to get in bed and stay there. I get that. Well, everything did work out in the end, and that baby is now about to turn 14. He's about 8 inches taller than me, and he's one of the coolest humans I've ever met. After a couple of years, Dan and I decided to leave Costa Rica and start our next chapter. So we got back on the bus, this time with our 18-month-old toddler, and headed north. We settled in Asheville in 2006 and almost immediately started our next business, a small home-based chocolate company. Our company, Asheville, quickly became an important part of our company story, and the French Broad River, our namesake. Our journey here feels so connected to this ancient winding waterway, and I've come to see the river as a metaphor for life. A river can be fun and exciting, or lazy and boring, can be tumultuous and even dangerous, such as our own life course. Our rivers, mine and yours and everyone's, crisscross, connect, disconnect, and ultimately all end up at the sea, a river's ultimate purpose. I'm so grateful that right now all of our rivers are at a confluence and that we're able to share this experience together. You guys are really nice to look at. One caveat. I stand before you not as some kind of expert who has figured everything out and is about to share with you the meaning of life. I am simply a fellow human, lifelong student, still making mistakes, still learning, still growing. So set your expectations there. Okay. A river is always moving and always changing. The current cannot be avoided or stopped. It simply is. A lot of our life is like that, right? The shit happens to us and around us all the time without our say. We simply don't have control. So a lesson that I find myself learning over and over is we can't always control what happens to us, but we can control our reaction to it. So we can respond to situations from our emotions. And I'm a big believer in honoring your feelings, but just because I have my feelings doesn't mean that they have to guide the actions that I take. So what actions will serve me in these situations? Well, I find that acting from my intuition always leads to growing and pursuing my path to truth. In that same pregnancy, my water broke 2 weeks before I gave birth. And if I were in the US and had a planned hospital birth, I likely would have ended up with a C-section that day. But I had planned an all-natural Costa Rican home birth with 2 hippie midwives as my guide. So when I asked my midwife, Vanessa, what I should do after my water broke, she asked if she could take me on a journey. A journey. I liken what she meant by this as a guided meditation or hypnosis type experience. And it was out of character for me, but I agreed to do it. And I took it seriously and honored the experience. And here is what happened. I found myself on a river. The river was calm, but there was movement, and I was riding the current. I was aware of the natural elements around me, the blue sky, trees, flowers, moss, light breeze. I was completely at peace. So when she guided me out of the trance, whatever, journey, I said to her, everything is going to be okay. Then she gave me some concrete actions that I could take to make sure everything was okay. So we monitored the baby's heart rate, and we checked my temperature multiple times a day because fever can indicate infection. So I wasn't completely ignoring the reality of the situation, but I was completely tuned in to my own intuition. And I knew gut deep that everything was going to be okay. This is the part where I forget what I'm saying next. There have been other moments, similar moments of serendipity and riding the current in our path in chocolate. The first was the decision to get into chocolate in the first place. So in 2003, I started making truffles and caramels just as a hobby and a passion and a way to share my love with my friends and family. One day, I was in my kitchen and I was hand rolling truffles and chocolate. It's a very meditative activity, and I found myself in a beautiful state of flow. When suddenly, I felt a strong tingling sensation in my hands, and I felt compelled to stop what I was doing and open my hands and look down at my chocolate-covered palms. When I looked up, I said aloud, "Chocolate is the thing that will make me happy." So, what I think I meant when I said that was, well, at the time I'd been searching for meaning. I wasn't finding it in my career. I wasn't finding it in grad school. But I knew I had a deeper purpose. And when I said chocolate is the thing that will make me happy, what I think I meant was chocolate is the medium in which I'll find that deeper purpose. Is chocolate the meaning of life? As much as I would like to think so. Probably not. But maybe? I don't know. But it's like the question isn't what's the meaning of life so much as what's the meaning of my life. And I knew in that moment that following a path in chocolate would help lead me to mine. Another such moment of following the current and feeling like I was on the right river happened when we decided to make our own chocolate. So in the first few years of our business, we bought chocolate as an ingredient, like most pastry shops and chocolatiers do. Meanwhile, we were honing in on our sourcing values, buying everything that we could from our local farmers and in our local food shed. If we couldn't find it locally, we were trying to find a farmer or producer that we could buy it from direct. We were making everything from scratch. This became such an important part of our business. But we came to a growing realization that we did not feel connected to the source of our cacao or our chocolate. And that no longer felt okay. So we followed our intuition and we listened to this misalignment of our values. And we decided that we were going to learn to make chocolate from cacao that we directly sourced. At the time, we had been buying some good quality chocolate from Peruvian cacao. So with that experience and preference, we decided that cacao would be our first source. We bought plane tickets to Peru with no connection to any cooperatives or farmers to speak of, just a mission to buy a container of organic cacao from Peru. Dan's sister Jen is a farmer, and she had done an internship in Virginia alongside an agricultural student from Peru. So when she found out we were going there, she said, "You have to meet up with my friend James." Okay, cool. So we set up a call to arrange a meeting with James while we're in Peru. Well, what we learned was, serendipitously, James at the time was an organic cacao farm certifier. So by the time we got to Peru, we had an agenda. We had flights, we had buses, we had meetings with leaders of cacao cooperatives and farmers all across the country. We went on farm tours, we tasted beans, we talked about quality and flavor and our values and our goals. It truly felt magical. By listening to the clues that life offered us, and by acting from our intuition and following our values, everything truly fell into place. So how do we know we're on the right river? How do we avoid fighting the current? Well, for me, it's when I'm making choices that are aligned with my values. It's when I'm acting from my intuition, and things feel kind of easy. However, not everything is easy, right? Sometimes you do have to fight the current. You do have to swim upstream. You do have to make an effort to follow the direction of your purpose. Sometimes things get rocky. The riverbed gets steep, and the water turbulent. And right now, I'm in the rapids. The rapids can be fun and exciting, but they can also be really scary and even feel like your life is in danger. We've been planning for years to build a new chocolate factory that could make more and better chocolate for our communities near and far. It took another year of planning and fundraising and building, and this past November, we opened our beautiful and functional factory. Thank you. But even with that behind us, it still feels like we're dodging rocks and crashing down waterfalls, and some days it feels like an accomplishment just to survive another day. But I believe in the company that we've built here in Asheville. I have faith and confidence in the talented team of 90 people who are helping us drive it forward. And I believe in Dan and myself as leaders. And I know, without anyone having to take me on a journey, that everything is going to be okay. So yes, things are rocky. I went out with a friend recently, and she shared a lesson that she learned as a river rafting guide for Outward Bound. And the lesson was, when you fall off the raft and into the rapids, you have to stay calm, think clearly, and not panic. Then your guiding mantra is, nose up, toes up. Has anyone heard of this? Great. So you have to keep your nose up, because then you're still able to breathe. And you're also able to see the information around you that can help. Then you have to lift your toes to the surface of the water, which can feel very counterintuitive, because grounding down feels like safety. But by lifting your toes to the surface of the water, you're avoiding the more dangerous elements of the river that you can't see. The waves around you are less dangerous than that. With your toes up, you can follow the current to safer waters. So right now, I've got my toes up, or my nose up. I'm breathing, I'm moving towards my goal, I'm following the current to safer waters. And I do believe everything is going to be okay. This talk was really hard to prepare for. The theme, first of all. I chose it. I did. It's also it's a damn honor to be up here on this stage. And I want to do a good job. And I want to connect authentically and honestly with you all. Also, I feel like I just got knocked out by another wave. And though this time not a literal one. And I feel like I've made it back to the beach, but I haven't yet had enough time on the sand to come to. I'm still dizzy and still trying to figure out what I'm learning from this experience. It's also a time of great change in my personal life. Dan and I are evolving our relationship. And though no longer romantic partners, we remain committed business partners, loving co-parents, and devoted friends. We're still on the river together, and we still are headed towards the same ultimate purpose. Our sea, our ultimate purpose, well, actually there are two right now. The first is to raise two happy and healthy humans and to guide them to presenting their whole authentic selves to the world. The second is to build a sustainable and beautiful company that can act as a model of using business as a force for good. And we're doing both of those things together. At the same time, I'm spending a lot of time and energy in getting comfortable in my own river. It's taken a lot of hard work, courage, discomfort, and self-reflection and questioning everything. And I've come to recognize the most reliable pattern in my life: ebb and flow, the two phases of a tide. The tide swells with energy and then wanes into peace. Such is the rhythm of life. If you don't recognize this pattern, you can easily become knocked off balance. But if you recognize that the ebb is always followed by the flow, over and over and over, you can find peace and hope even in the most turbulent of waters. So what I know right now is I believe in the rhythm of life, and the waters may be rough. I know everything is going to be okay. Thank you.